Context. I, 19 female. Start college next week. Nothing crazy, just community before transferring. When I was 16, my stepdad's aunt gave me $5,000 for college. My stepdad deposited into his account so I wouldn't have access to it until I was 18, which I was skeptical about, but okay with, since my mom is usually the one that recklessly spends or uses my money. Well, about a month ago I found out that the money is gone. Apparently, it was used for my mom's car payment and the mortgage during virus. Obviously I was angry and upset. She showed me her regular car payment and I kinda just let it subside. Well, today I told my grandma about it in casual conversation, and she brought up some points I hadn't thought of. Number 1, my mom was shopping beyond her means during virus with her stimulus money. Number 2, I was never told and the check was written in my name, so how was my stepdad able to cash it? Lastly, his family more than likely doesn't know. She's livid about it, and usually I'm very confident and argumentative, but I know this would cause a massive rift in my family, and I don't know if I want to deal with that. Info. My mom was still in college and was a waitress, so she wasn't making much money. My stepdad worked for StatMedVac, but due to some issues with higher management, was out of work for a few weeks. Update. I talked to some family on my mom's side and have come to somewhat of a conclusion. At some point in the next 2 weeks, I'll be sitting down with my parents and come to an agreement on how the money will be paid back over the course of the next 3 years. I'm graduating early. If during the next year I don't receive any money or assistance from them, then I'll be talking to the aunt and my stepdad's family as a final resort. I'll also be meeting with a counselor from my school this week to get resources for therapy, so I can healthily process whatever may happen over the next few months, and to make sure that I've processed any past trauma healthfully. Not the a-hole. Your parental figures went behind your back and stole from you. They didn't tell you till you noticed it. Not the a-hole. If your stepdad's aunt can get a copy of the check through her bank, you can look at it to see if they forged your signature. She may not be so cooperative since it is her relative that stole the money. Go to her yourself and ask about the check. Let her know your stepdad deposited into his account to hold it for you, but that you're now concerned because he said it was gone. Ask her advice on what you should do. You can tell her how much it meant that she made such a gesture in the first place, but now you're just confused and concerned. Going to her for help and guidance will get you more than anything. This isn't something you can fight on your own, since it seems like your mom doesn't have your back here. No one in the family likes mother-in-law's husband for a couple of reasons. He works in an immoral industry and admits he will do anything for money. He is very pompous, competitive, and likes to take digs about everyone's financial situations. He was a lazy parent to his own children, and a cold and jealous stepfather to his stepchildren. Really, mother-in-law's the only person who likes him. She gets an entirely different side of him, but at the same time, I feel she can't just ignore who he is. My 13-year-old daughter is a very smart and intelligent girl, and has decided to be no contact with him. We fully support her, and she no longer attends family events. Recently, we went out in a group for someone's birthday, just the women, so he was not there or she would not have gone. We saw the musical Hadestown. After the musical we grabbed dinner, and my daughter was talking about how the kids in their theater group are obsessed with it, and she feels they romanticized a toxic relationship in two of the main characters, Hades and Persephone, and Hades should be viewed strictly as a villain. Mother-in-law said, "It's honestly the best feeling though when someone hates everyone but you. It's so cute." My daughter replied, "Well, that isn't surprising as we've all seen the a-hole you married." Mother-in-law laughed and said, "If you were my kid, you'd be in so much trouble right now," and looked at me like she expected me to say something. I replied that I don't believe in punishing for every little thing, and my daughter was expressing her opinion. I said that mother-in-law said something which offended my daughter, so my daughter responded, and there would be no punishment. I also said that I try not to come from a place of authoritarian parenting. Mother-in-law said I clearly got whatever I wanted, and that is why my daughter is so annoying to be around. I replied that mother-in-law was reactive and controlling with her own kids, and now they all hate her. Mother-in-law was furious, and now the family is pretty divided. My husband is actually on his mom's side, which surprised me, because he usually isn't. Everyone sucks here. Mother-in-law gave an opinion your daughter did not like. She did not attack your daughter. Rather than replying with evidence justifying her opinion, your daughter chose to use a personal attack. Your daughter was unnecessarily unkind to mother-in-law. Mother-in-law's response to your lack of action was inappropriate on her part, but your response was just as bad, if not worse. Personal attacks are not okay. Everyone here acted inappropriately. Yes, the a-hole. Big difference between supporting her expressing her opinions and letting her run around calling other people's spouses a-holes and judging their relationship as a 13-year-old. That is rude and uncalled for, and she should be told as much. Otherwise, she is in for a very rude awakening in life. Not surprising from an adult describing that as clapping back. It's interesting that you accuse mother-in-law's spouse of being a bad parent, yet you don't really have the high ground here. You come off as holier than thou, and frankly, you're willfully raising a brat. You can disagree with people all day long, but there's a difference between disagreeing and being a disrespectful jerk. I'd also like to know what this immoral industry is. Yes, the a-hole. Haha. This morning, I woke up to a bunch of texts from my sister, who lives 14 hours away. She's been pregnant for a little less than 5 months. She was supposed to be the maid of honor at my wedding, but she delivered the news that the doctor told her she had a miscarriage. I can only imagine the grief my sister is going through. She can't attend my wedding, and even though everything is already booked and we had some guests flying in for the wedding, I just can't have it without her. I thought my fiancé would understand, but instead, he got extremely upset. We've been planning this date for a while now, because it's his mother's birthday, and very special to him. But it would make my sister devastated if I had it without her, since I know she was looking forward to it. She said she just wasn't ready to celebrate anything at the moment, and as her sister, I feel like it's my responsibility to comfort her. It's early in the morning where I live, and we're preparing for the wedding tomorrow, but I can't stomach having my special day without my sister. I told my fiancé, and after I finish writing this, I'm going to start packing. I need to be with my sister right now. I know everything has already been planned out, and I'm ruining a lot by doing this, but I have to put family first. My fiancé is definitely mad and called me an a-hole because of it. So I was wondering, am I the a-hole for canceling my wedding last minute to be with my grieving sister? You have to do what's right for you, and if the most important thing is your sister, then absolutely pack your bags and go to her. I sympathize with her loss. And afterwards, don't come back. Your fiancé deserves a partner whose priority is him. Sororital miscarriages do not outweigh weddings for most of us, so I side with the groom. This is the kind of thing you note of in a marital toast, while carrying on, then sending a wedding video to the person who couldn't attend. Yes, the a-hole. You think your sister was looking forward to your wedding more than your fiancé. Remember to return the engagement ring. You are wasting tons of money, tons of other people's money, and their time for one person. If you're willing to let everyone else around you crash and burn for your sister, then that's your choice. But that would be a deal breaker for me if I was your fiancé. There would be no rescheduled wedding. Do you even care about your wedding? It's entirely in your right to prioritize your sister, but don't expect others to stick around, especially not your fiancé. He deserves someone who puts him first on his wedding day. Yes, the a-hole. Edit. After one tough talk with my fiancé, we're not canceling the wedding. We're going to have it despite the loss of my niece, and record it to send to my sister when the time comes. We made up for the most part, and decided we are going to have a maid of honor at our wedding. Thank you guys. Would have made a stupid decision without 99 people calling me an a-hole. I was in labor for 26 hours, and was in a lot of pain as I didn't take an epidural. My husband was constantly on the phone, either playing games or talking with his bros, being really loud. When I asked him to please hang up, he'd hang up the phone, and then like 10 minutes later call them back. He really wanted to talk to them because his friends went on a boys' trip without him, because I asked him to stay back so he could be here when I went into labor. They were calling to tell him about how their trip was going. He apologized to them, blaming it on me being a nag. I was really annoyed, and told him if he wanted to talk to his friends, he could do that elsewhere, so I can be in pain and peace. He was like, "Alright, fine baby, I'll just call them back later." So I had about 20 minutes of peace, until his mom FaceTimed him, where he proceeded to put me in the video call. His mom makes a comment about how she remembers when she was in labor with him, and that she still did herself up. She even claimed she looked so good the doctor was even flirting with her. I was holding back everything inside me not to say something, as I didn't want to disrespect my mother and all, but at the same time, she sometimes just makes the stupidest comments at the worst times, and at this moment, I could not stand talking to her. A nurse ends up coming in and could tell I was upset, and asks me if everything was all right, and I tell her I just really want to be alone. She ends up kicking out my husband, and in turn, he ends up missing the birth of our firstborn daughter, because he left the hospital, because he was pissed off that I got the nurse to kick him out of the room. He refused to come see his daughter afterwards, because he was angry at me for kicking him out. My mother-in-law, who did visit me in the hospital, wouldn't stop talking about how I'm such a bad wife for removing my husband from the room. When I got home, he kept on bringing up how I ruined a moment of bonding with his daughter, and how he could never forgive me for that. Am I the a-hole for kicking my husband out of the delivery room because he was making phone calls? Not the a-hole. That's a whole lot of red flags from your husband. Had to be told not to leave on a boy's holiday when his wife would likely be giving birth to his child. Ignored his laboring wife to chat with his friends on said trip. Called them back after being told to hang up. Answered a video chat from someone you didn't want in the room. Allowed that person to be disrespectful towards you. Went off in a sulk instead of visiting you and his child as soon as he was allowed back in. If he has a problem with the situation, you can ask him what he was feeling the last time he had a new person escaping from his vagina, so you can compare notes and come up with a compromise. 100% all of this. The deflection makes me angry for her. She needed her husband and he acted like a child. Childbirth is nothing to joke about. Women die in childbirth, and it's painful. Definitely not the a-hole. But having to tell a grown man how to act isn't something you want to be doing while in labor. Not the a-hole. The nurse kicked him out of the room. He's the one that chose to leave the hospital altogether. Tell him you missed the birth of your daughter because you threw a temper tantrum and left the hospital. If you had been focused on me and the baby, instead of playing games and having loud phone calls with your friends, I never would have asked you to leave the room. You're mad that you missed this moment? Well, I'm mad that when your daughter and I needed you most, you prioritized chatting with your friends and complaining about what a nag I am. I am mad that when I was in an incredibly vulnerable position, you let your mom insult me. I am mad that you are blaming me for something that was the consequences of your own selfish actions. I am mad that you are still making this situation about yourself and playing the victim instead of celebrating that I gave birth to our daughter. We had to temporarily move in with mother-in-law, and it sucks because she thinks she gets a vote on everything. She critiques my parenting, my marriage, how I dress. She doesn't even like the food I cook for my husband. It's really hard on our marriage and makes me want to get the duck out of here. Recently, my husband and I had a pretty big fight. I'm aware it's immature that we fought loud enough mother-in-law could hear, but I was just heated because he played a prank and squirted me with a hose for a window while I was using the toilet, and I felt so degraded and disrespected. Mother-in-law decided to butt in and tell us how much our marriage sucks. She said I'm so miserable and uptight that if she was married to me, she would cheat, and she feels bad for her son for having to be with someone so miserable. She said I should work on myself because no man is going to put up with that. I asked if she would like to be married to her son, and she just rolled her eyes. Now, I might be the a-hole here, but I said I actually don't think she would. If they were two random people who met on the street, she would 100% say he isn't good enough for her. I've seen the men she is with. Her standards are sky high. So she should shut the duck up. I could see my husband was mortified. I know he already has some insecurities. I then said I didn't even want her advice because she cheated on her first husband. Mother-in-law told me to duck off and said I have no idea what happened in her first marriage. I might also be the a-hole because mother-in-law's stepkids heard this, and now they have more crap to talk about her. After they left, mother-in-law called me a misogynist and asked if I seriously thought her first husband never cheated on her, and said I need to mind my own business. Her husband also yelled at me about how I shouldn't be saying anything when I live in their house. Not the a-hole. Mother-in-law dug herself a hole for throwing rocks at you, knowing that she lives in a glass mansion. Your husband is the a-hole too, for comporting like a child. You're right, they deserve each other. You should try to leave and never look back. Not the a-hole. Your husband sounds like a childish loser, and your mother-in-law is one of those weirdo women who believes their sons are God's gift to the earth, and deserve better than any woman ever. I think of them as pick-me's, but maternal. Your mother-in-law started giving unsolicited advice on your marriage first, so you were within your rights to give your opinion on her love life right back, in my opinion. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Not the a-hole. She really told you to mind your own business? That was the moment. You should have looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Lady, if you practiced what you preached, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now."